You're on the plane, you've come back from Croatia. Now, what I don't understand is why airlines just don't put the wheelchair into the luggage hold last so that it's the first thing that comes off the plane, because you're clearly in greater need getting off that plane than pretty much anybody else.
Yes.
But in your case, or anyone's case, that doesn't seem to happen. What took place?
So when I arrived at the airport, it was clear that my wheelchair had been left behind in Croatia. And they didn't have any provisions at the time for me to have a suitable replacement. They had offered me what was called an assisted wheelchair, which is actually closer to a desk chair than anything else.
So a bit like the chairs we've got behind our desk, so it's a chair that's on wheels.
Exactly.
Small wheels. But there's no way that you can propel that. No. You've got to be pushed by somebody.
Exactly. And when I asked them what was I meant to do when I got home, they didn't have any answer for me. So I didn't have an option but to just drag myself through the airport and then get to the taxi and then drag myself home.
So it wasn't even as if they couldn't find your wheelchair in the hold, that your wheelchair just hadn't been loaded onto the plane. Why not? Do you know?
No, don't know.
At the time, you didn't put this footage out immediately because you were trying to go through some sort of contact with Luton Airport to establish a change in policy for them.
Exactly.
What were they saying was their policy, and what did you want them to deliver?
Well, as you said, so a lot of people have misunderstood that this actually happened a year ago.
Yeah.
And I've been very quietly and politely petitioning for a change in policy, and just to try and ensure that Luton have the right provisions for all of their disabled passengers. But over the course of the last year, they've refused to acknowledge that they needed to do anything differently. And so that's when I realised that I didn't have a choice, but I had to release all of the images to try and...
You've been fighting on this issue for a year.
Yes.
And it's not until you put that image of you dragging yourself through the airport that actually the policy has changed.
Exactly. And if it's now the case that they've changed the policy, they've put in self-propelled chairs, and more importantly, a loan system in place, so if anything is lost, that someone has a suitable replacement, then I'm absolutely delighted, because this is all that I've been searching for.
Congratulations on getting that achieved.
How frustrating that you had to do it publicly rather than do it in the way that is more dignified and more polite.
And more cooperative.
And more cooperative.
From Luton Airport.
Tanni, you're sort of nodding along and laughing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just happened so many times. My chair's gone missing. It's ended up in a different airport from one that I was travelling through. I actually had one airline where they tried to give me 2 sleeping bags in return and tell me that was the missing item. It's like, no, it's a wheelchair. I was actually asked, are you sure it was a wheelchair? I was also asked at the same time, have you ever tried to walk?
No.
Where
was that?
That was Birmingham Airport. That was a long time ago, but my chair came back 3 months later and the back wheel had been severed off.
Severed off?
Yeah, just completely cut through. So it just happens. And actually, I think what Justin's done is amazing, because this is the reality of a lot of experiences of disabled people, that, you know, you get left on planes, you can get left for sometimes a couple of hours. We've seen Frank Gardner's been left on a plane several times recently.
And what about your most recent train experiences as well?
It's not just planes, is it?
So last week I decided to crawl off a train because it didn't appear that anyone was coming to get me.
So essentially you wait on the train when the train arrives and someone brings a wheelchair for you?
It brings a ramp to get you off.
Yes.
So as a wheelchair user, you're meant to book 24 hours in advance.
Right, okay,
I'd booked
course,
assistance.
Yes. So the ramp's there and you can come down the ramp and then
then I'm off. So it didn't look like anyone was coming to get me.
Where was this?
So this was in Euston. Wow. And I decided, because I had other things to go and do, I decided to crawl off the train. And then this week I was left on a train for just about 25 minutes at 10 o'clock at night in Manchester. And again, it didn't appear anybody was coming to get me. And actually a different member of staff noticed that I was still on the train and came to help me.
And what do you find has the biggest impact in terms of trying to sort of get some attention to this? Or
it is unfortunately doing it publicly, and although there's a lot more disabled people travelling than ever, which is good,
really positive.
It's the processes and the communication that's just not in place. And when you're required to book, you know, it shouldn't be that difficult to actually even... One of the things when you're booking a train, you have to give your mobile phone number. Actually just sending the person a text message to say, don't worry, you might have to wait a couple of minutes, but someone's on the way. But when the train's deserted and the platform's deserted...
And it's 10 o'clock at night, by the way.
Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's actually... A lot of disabled people won't travel on public transport because of the uncertainty of what's happening, and that needs to change across all public transport.
Absolutely.
We have had a statement from Luton Airport that says it has 10 self-propelled chairs permanently based at the airport and a loan replacement system if people need to borrow wheelchairs free of charge. They also say our teams worked hard to find a solution, offering Mr Levene an assisted wheelchair as a temporary replacement. Mr Levene declined all offers of help. Whilst we apologise if Mr Levene was dissatisfied with the service he received, we are satisfied that our agents and staff did all they could in difficult circumstances.
Although the point I think you're making is that the offer of help was not the offer of help you actually needed.
Exactly. And actually that offer was an offer of the assisted chair once, and when I said that wasn't suitable, that was the end of any offers. There wasn't anything else which was considered.
Well, at least from now on, if that situation happens again, do you feel confident that Luton Airport would have the offer of help that
Yes,
you can accept?
I hope so. I think this is a fantastic result. It's a shame that it's had to take a year and all of the publicity to happen, but mistakes happen. And it's important that when the mistakes do happen, there's an ownership of them and that you learn from the experiences. And it does appear that they're starting to learn from this and they've implemented some of the changes for a positive result.
Just tell us a little bit about your backstory, because you grew up being able-bodied, but something happened at the age of 20 that meant that you need to use the chair.
So 2 days before my 21st birthday, I coughed. And it caused a slip disc and trapped some nerves. And then when I went in for surgery, that's when my spinal cord was ruptured. Then I had a further surgery for fusion. That also failed. And then I was in hospital for a couple of years. And yeah.
Here we are.
You've been through a tough fight, haven't you?
It's character building. That's one way to look at it.
Well, yeah, and that disposition is why you're here now and you've managed to achieve everything that you have. Justin, thank you very much for joining us. Tanni, it's always lovely to see you. What would you like to say to the transport companies out there? Because what we do want is we want more disabled people to feel empowered that they can go out and travel. Yeah,
it's communicate, actually, and, understand the difficulty that it causes. You accept as a wheelchair, you might have to wait a bit longer. Actually, all I want for disabled people is the same experience of travelling as everyone else. You get on, you get off, and that's it. We don't want special treatment. We don't want different treatment.
It's not too much to ask, is it?
You just want to be able to use public transport.
Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.